Greetings from Mind Stories, where unpredictable and energizing stories achieved. I'm sharing a mysterious story today. Emotions of suspense and heartfelt feelings. This is Keanu Reeves' story. A man was honored for more than just his iconic action roles, but also for his extraordinary courage and kind heart. However, he isn't standing on the large screen this time. The fight against fictional enemies currently. He and his faithful companion are in real life. A Pitbull named Buddy faced a dark mystery. Everything started when Keanu, a small village in search of peace, astonished by a deserted house tucked down in the forest. Inside, there were haunting diary entries in a mysterious box. Fitting in with a young girl who was gone 2 decades ago, he set off on a journey motivated by curiosity. A sinister conspiracy, had been uncovered. Every clue brought him and Buddy to one, getting nearer to the reality, but also put them at an unthinkable risk. Is it possible for Keanu to pursue justice for the young girl and expose those responsible for the crime, or will the truth be buried forever in the shadows of the past? Come explore the shocking truth with me. Keanu's Pitbull and Reeves cracking the case of an abandoned house and exploring all that was confused in the dark. Now, let's go into the story. Behind the main mountains, the sun dipped. The main road was evacuated by Keanu Reeves. Going into Blackwater, a tiny village, it had arrived. That he sought rest from the Hollywood clamor, away from the press's infinite questions, in search of peace. The tiny wooden cabin he'd acquired, situated at the forest's edge, and the village is less than 3 miles away, was the ideal setting for him and Huddy, his devoted Pitbull, for quiet, uneventful days. Wearing boots and a simple leather jacket, getting out of his truck, Keanu the Buddy jumped down in front of him, tail wagging, angry, and ears perked upon his arrival at the yard. "Go on, Buddy, check that out," Keanu said, grinning faintly. The puppy barked lightly as though he understood, and started snoring. Around Blackwater was a small village. Only a few hundred people call this place home. The majority of villagers labored on nearby farms. The locals were welcoming if you made a living fishing, but had a renaissance in them, relating to the history of the area, the northern woods in particular, where a historical old house was hidden. That night the forest is glowing palely as the moonlight bathes it. Keanu chose to go for a walk with Buddy. Into the woods, they followed a narrow trail. The delicate rustle of leaves is carried by the cool air beneath the foot. As usual, Buddy nosed to the ground. The LED suddenly, he froze. His body is rigid. "What is it, Buddy?" Keanu requested a closer step. Prior to his reaching him, a Buddy installed the trees, loudly barking. His voice reverberated across the forest silence. Keanu gave chase, his feet crunching on the uneven surface. He discovered himself standing in front of an elderly person moments later. The decrepit house is located in an overgrown neighborhood. Those windows were broken, the skew in the first door, and the paint had peeled away for a long time. Buddy was barking at the doorway on the porch. His gaze was fixed on the interior darkness. "Okay, Buddy," Keanu said, "what did you find?" Recovering his breath, he stepped onto the wooden porch that was creaking. From the house, I can feel the chill evaporating. Inside, there was a lot of dust in the air. Moreover, his flashlight's beam pierced the shadows, barely scratched. Buddy at a tiny locked door. Keanu knelt down to test the handle. Hanging on, Buddy would not budge it. He murmured, going back to get a wooden piece nearby. The door ground open with a solid push, disclosing a tiny room. A dusty wooden box was set in the center. Give it a careful lift. Keanu set the box on a table nearby. Beside him, his eyes were glowing at the box. If it contained important information. Keanu threw the lid away, disclosing a lot of memory in an old journal. The words were scrawled across its worn cover. Emily Carter, 2002. Keanu. Emily Carter muttered. His eyes flickered with curiosity. He skimmed over the pages. Why? Reading faded entries, a children's writing concerning her last days before to her disappearance. Her words conveyed uneasiness and fear concerning the shadows lurking around the house. As Keanu read the final, a chill ran down his spine. Line: "If this journal is found, tell the world that I didn't disappear, please." They caught me in Keanu's breath. It felt heavier in the room. The unseen weight of the air dense. He displayed his flashlight. Cracked walls and web corners are caught by its beams. His breathing and his babies were the only sounds. Silently, the dog sits alert. Every creak makes the ears twitch. They repeatedly took me to Keanu. In the oppressive silence, his voice was low but resonant. Why would they take Emily, and who were they? Suddenly, Buddy grew a low rumble emanating from his throat. Deeply Keanu's flashlight begun. Buddy was staring at the corner, and swinging toward there was nothing. Only shadows and a decayed wood pile. Simple Buddy despite his uneasiness. Keanu said his voice was steady. He shut down the journal, returning it to the box together with the documents. Regardless of what he had stumbled upon, it was more complicated than that. Let's move on, Buddy. We must leave this place. Carefully tug on Buddy's collar. Keanu, however, the dog stayed rooted. Observing the corner this time, Keanu tried again. Fisher went upstairs, caused a loud crash, a deep thud. Then the creak of wood kindas stopped his eyes from widening. The sound of the heart pounding wasn't brought on by the wind. It was deliberate too. Settling house. Sharply Buddy barks break the tension. He pulled toward the stairs while tugging at his leash. Not a Buddy. Keanu whispered, not yet. The tense murmur in his voice as hold on Buddy's leash tightened. His staircase gaze was locked and eerie silence was left in its wake when the noise stopped. With his decision box in hand, Keanu backed toward the front door. He led Buddy. Every step of the FLORBOARDS creating in the silence. I felt amplified. Exhaled deeply after leaving the Keanu. He seemed to have just surfaced from the water. He stood in the chilly night air on the porch. A suffocating contrast that is stark. The home's atmosphere pressed near him. Buddy, his tail, relaxed his body tension. Keanu reviewed the house. It appeared much more foreboding under the pale moonlight, as if it were concealing 1,000 secrets. Beyond the deathly walls, regardless of what had just transpired within, was just the start. Buddy, we'll be back. In a quiet voice, Keanu expressed a mixture of calm and relaxation. However, not tonight. First, we must determine what we discovered. With his ears drooping, Buddy let out a low whine. He appeared to concur that leaving was the best course of action. Putting the box in his truck's back seat for the time being, Keanu finally checked Buddy's leash prior to seated in the driver's seat. The headlights on the truck illuminated the village's narrow road back. Keanu's rearview mirror glanced behind the trees. The house gone. However, a strange feeling lingered, like it was viewing him go, retaining a portion of himself upon the truck's rumbling departure from the forest reclaimed the night in silence. However, Ken knew that the silence would not last. The Emily Carter questions, moreover, her last words would haunt him. And even more, he felt a strange sense of responsibility, pressuring him to reveal the truth for himself, not only for his family. His head rested on Keanu's knee. His eyes remained wide, observing the flickering shadows outside the window. One thing was understood by both the dog and the man. This was just the start. The sun in the morning filtered through the cabin's curtains, narrow gaps, illuminating the wooden walls with soft light. Woke Keanu with unanswered questions running around his mind. The wooden box on the table, a silver necklace that Emily formerly wore, along with her journal. I'm still sitting quietly, curling up under the table. Buddy, when he heard Keanu's footsteps, his ears perked up. We need to learn more about Emily Carter today, Buddy. Keanu patting his dog's head gently. Buddy checked in. He wags his tail slightly in agreement. Following a speedy breakfast, Keanu made the decision to go to the village center. To contact the locals. Even so, the family's history was almost 2 decades old. A person in Blackwater may remember the Childly Woman. The only coffee shop in the village is located on the main road. A quiet area. Every morning, locals gathered to catch up. Keanu walked in, snatching off his jacket, and selected a quiet corner to sit in. A black coffee was what he ordered, and started posing inquiries regarding Emily Carter. Emily Carter, the owner of the cafe, a 50-year-old woman with silvery hair. I froze at the name that had not been mentioned for years. One day, the poor girl simply disappeared without leaving a trace. Nobody was able to locate her. Keanu. His voice was steady but inquisitive. Under the table, Buddy rested, watching the room with his sharp eyes. No, they didn't. The woman's voice was hushed. Sharing nearer, it might have been a runaway case, according to the police. However, her family didn't think so. But before continuing, she took a cautious look around. The house was the subject of rumors. Some people claimed that it is haunted. Keanu took care to maintain a neutral expression. He was aware that rumors may quickly turn into fiction. However, Emily's journal and what happens around the house, I thought this was not a typical story. Following the discussion, Keanu went to the small library in the village. Introducing the librarian, the old man with the thick glasses, when Keanu brought up Emily Carter, she seemed interested. Yes, he said, I remember her. Her family used to own the house. And he was adjusting his glasses. However, after Emily vanished after leaving the village, her parents, despite selling the property, no one was willing to live there. Ever since, it has been abandoned. Old records were retrieved by the librarian. Presenting a stack of clippings to Keanu, a 2002 headline caught Keanu's attention. Teenage girl went missing without leaving a trace. The article explained Emily Carter's method. 18 was last seen going out one evening from high school. Notwithstanding extensive searches near the bottom, police had not discovered any leads. A tinier note was removed from the article. Investigations by authorities. Unusual events in the Carter house. There were no other details given. Keanu took notes as his thoughts raced. Sitting quietly next to him, his buddy. Suddenly, a low growth was released. On the shadows behind the shelves, his gaze was fixed. Returning to the cabin, Keanu kept reading the journal of Emily. While he was flipping over the pages, he learned of her increasing fear of being observed. She explained the shadows. Visiting the area of the house at night, and unusual sounds out of the basement. They are aware that I have discovered their secret as of June 12, 2002. Every day, they get closer. Their secret was sped up by Keanu's heart. He turned to the last pages of the journal. However, they were ripped out. Going away with a void. Keanu was suddenly snapped out of his thoughts. Buddy barked going to the front door. The dog, his ears pinned back as he grows peeking through the window. Keanu, however, nothing was seen beyond the darkness. However, there is an uneasy feeling about him. It's all right, buddy, he said, probably just the wind. Despite his lack of conviction, that evening Keanu decided to go back to the desolate house. To find additional clues fitted with a crowbar and a powerful flashlight. He trailed Buddy into the forest. Over time, the dog's nose performed, directing them more into the property. In the moonlight, the house had a more foreboding appearance. Sharply, Buddy barks at the front door. Keanu stepped into the interior's chilly stillness. Wrapping right around him, he decided to go to the basement. Remembering what Emily said in the journal, a musty was released when the basement door was opened. Smelling damp, the rickety was illuminated by the beam of Keanu's flashlight. Wooden steps going down into the dark. His body was tense and alert as Buddy led the way. Keanu found a locked cabinet at the bottom. He used a crowbar to pry it open with effort. A collection of old paperwork and photographs was contained with it. In particular, one image caught Keanu's attention. The image showed Emily standing next to a cunning man. Disturbing glance words were scrawled on the photo's back. He knows everything, therefore don't trust him. Why would Emily warn about him? And who is he? Keanu talked, the faint echo of his voice in the still basement. Keanu was close to Buddy. His twitching ears and his continued growth, his gaze was fixed on the basement's far end. Shadows that appeared unnaturally thick. That was the direction that Keanu aimed his flashlight. However, it showed nothing. Nevertheless, dust-covered crates and decaying wood. Despite the appearance of absence, unease grew in Keanu. There was an unseen tension in the basement. Like the house itself was observing. Let's go. Buddy. Keanu firmly clutched the papers and photo. He wasn't going anywhere without a response. However, it wasn't time to push harder tonight. Upon leaving the basement, the house seemed to groan and scream. Going to the door with them, Keanu exhaled hardly after leaving. The oppressive weight is slightly elevated. He turned to look at the house, covered in shadows now, and the feeling that it still held was too strong to shake. More discreet than he can perceive, pressed Buddy against Keanu's leg. His body remains alert. They returned to the forest together. Leaving the house for the time being, yet Keanu was aware of one thing. Regardless of what truth Emily had revealed, it was waiting, not buried. Only below the surface for a brave, or a dull enough person to dig it up under the shadow of the night. Keanu and Buddy went back to their house. A heavy, their unseen presence lingering in the air, Keanu locked the door carefully. He darted his gaze to the windows. Like you were expecting someone alternatively, something to observe unusually, Buddy sat by his side. His eyes scanned the shadows as his ears remained upright. As if perceiving a rising peril, the cryptic warning in the photograph, he knows everything, therefore don't trust him. Keanu's mention of who the man in the picture was moreover. Why had Emily given him such a dire warning? Keanu was aware that he couldn't solve this mystery by himself. He required assistance, but from whom? The following morning, Keanu made the decision to go see Mrs. The village's oldest resident is Margaret. Renowned for having a keen memory and a thorough understanding of Blackwater's past at the end of the main road, she resided in a quarter house. Amid blooming rose bushes, Margaret smiled warmly as she greeted Keanu and Buddy. However, when he brought up Emily Carter, it changed. I remember her well, Emily. Her voice tinged with sadness, she said. She was an intelligent girl. However, she occasionally gets too curious for her own good. This entire village was shocked when she vanished. Her parents suffered from heartbreak. Do you know who this man is? Keanu gave her the picture he had discovered. As Margaret studied it, her eyes widened. She said, "That's Warren Graves." Her voice trailed off to a faint whisper. He was a prosperous and influential businessman. However, after Emily vanished, did he not see or hear from anyone since? Frown Keanu, do you believe he was involved in the disappearance of Emily? Mrs. Margaret paused before slowly nodding out. Despite the rumors, nobody dared to speak out. A few people considered he was part of dark dealings. However, there was never any evidence. Moreover, the police did not conduct a thorough investigation. Resolute T.O. explained the reality that afternoon. Keanu went back to the abandoned house. Equipped with a camera to record any discoveries, however, he remained near, his keen eyes or sweeping the area. Upon returning to the basement, Keanu searched meticulously this time. Going over every drawer in a hidden compartment in an old crevice, he found a notepad with an old, cracked cover, and there were thorough notes inside that seemed to belong to Warren Graves or something. Chronicles secretive transactions in the entries, and a list of names was included. Among them was an Emily Carter. We found something, Buddy. Keanu's soft bark reaction to the whispered Buddy, however. His focus was fixed on the basement's far corner. His growth is suddenly increasing once more. An early thud resonated from above. Keanu froze. He pointed his flashlight at the basement stairs. The flashlight was turned off by someone in the house. Aiming to keep the Buddy quiet, they crept up the stairs together. Keanu peed into the living room. At the top, a figure was seen gliding through the scattered debris. "You," Keanu shouted. "Who?" The figure turned sharply as you stepped into view. A cold, calculating gaze on a gaunt man, the man said, "You shouldn't be here." His voice was low and menacing. "Now leave this area." Keanu didn't back down. "And I'm not leaving until the truth about Emily Carter is known to me." The man gave Emily Carter a sneer. "Avoid getting involved in things that don't affect you. It will just cause problems." Prior to Keanu's responding swiftly, the man retreated, exiting the door and disappearing into the continuous forest. Buddy barked angrily, but Keanu restrained him. "It's all right, Buddy. Him will be back at the cabin." Keanu gives the notebook. He found a clear examination. Numerical data filled its pages. Addresses and notes in cryptic. Specifically, one entry caught his attention. Final transaction in Area X. What is Area X? And leave no trace. In his journal, Keanu jotted down the note. This was a critical lead, he saw. Even so, there was probably a significant risk. Ever vigilant Buddy, Keanu's feet, SAT, his faithful presence, is a source of silent power. Reaching down, Keanu fluffed up the dog's fur. "I'm not alone in this, at least." As the evening wore on, upon seeing the evidence he had gathered, Keanu gazed. The photograph and the journal, the notebook, every part of a conflict that gave way to something larger and much darker than his imagination. And yet, his side as Buddy, he experienced a surge of resolve. They would confront whatever was ahead together. Uncovering the truth about Emily Carter was demanded. Regardless of the cost, the dawn gray and somber morning in Blackwater presenting rain and blanketing the sky with heavy clouds running on a little sleep. Keanu, unable to shake the questions and images Warren Graves' notebook stirred, made the decision to learn more about Area X. He set up for another searching day. Ever vigilant buddy, he remained vigilant in observing Keanu's illness. A review of the village library by Keanu T.O. retained research or unusual places close to Blackwater typically. The elderly librarian is calm and collected. Looked uncomfortably when Keanu brought up Warren Graves. "You're on a perilous path," the man, Mr. Reeves, said, nervously looking about, as if afraid of unseen ears. "If I remember correctly, Area X, the site is old and limited to the north of Blackwater. In the past, people wished that Warren had used it." For Keanu thanked the librarian for the unsavory activities down the directions and jotted, "Even yet." The warning weighed heavily on his mind. He was aware the key to unraveling the mystery may be in this lead. Spreading an old map on the buddy by his side, and the passenger seat, Keanu goes north. Into a territory that has become more untamed. Here the road grew rock and narrowed, until his truck was unable to move any farther. A dense thicket near a parking space, he kept moving forward. A buddy guarding the way across the congested trail. Following a tiresome track, they found a metal fence that was rusted. The gate's red sign has faded. "Well, no trespassing." That's Keanu muttered, inviting. Buddy barks gently, seemingly in agreement. There is a long abandoned structure inside the fenced area. Probably a warehouse. The majority of the outside is claimed by vines and decay. However, the heavy doors were still in place. Keanu worked hard to push them open. The silent woods with the creek echoing. There were broken crates and debris all around the interior. However, his attention was drawn to a doorway at the rear. A basement. Buddy grew low as a result. His signaled dangerous instincts, however. Keanu pressed him to reassure him. A large space was seen in the basement, packaged with dusty folders and metal cabinets. While Keanu combed over the documents, he discovered multiple references to Emily Carter. The words "Target Emily Carter" are stamped on one document. He was chilled to his core by the status process. Muttered process. Keanu, what does his pulse quickening mean? Was she taken somewhere or killed? He found a map with links going to another website identified by a different signal. It was pocketed by Keanu, having a suspicion that it could be essential to uncovering the truth. Buddy and Keanu coming out of the basement. They saw fresh footprints on the dirt by the entrance of the warehouse. A person had been observing. A gruff voice was called out prior to Keanu reacting down there. "What did you find?" Keanu turned to confront a big man with a gun. Buddy growled fiercely, directly directed at him. Keanu gestured for him to remain calm, even though he was ready to punch. Keanu said nothing despite the tension. His voice remained steady. The man spotted a curious wanderer. "You will be killed for curiosity. This is the last warning you have. Go away and set everything you have seen away." Prior to the man acting more, Buddy sprang goes to work. He dropped the gun as a result of me lunging for his arm. Keanu observes the man disarming and making him go back into the forest to rest. The man's final words reverberated menacingly. "What you're dealing with is unknown to you." Spread the collected documents back at the cabin. Keanu, and over the table, a map. Warner Graves was more than just a businessman. He was in charge of a human trafficking scheme. The truth was probably revealed by Emily Carter, and there was no coincidence behind her disappearance. A location was pinpointed by the newly found map. Final station labeled in the woods. This website may contain answers, or Emily's own if she'd managed to survive. "Or getting close, Buddy." Scratching the dog's ears, Keanu said in response. Buddy barked softly, his faithful eyes reflecting his owner's determination. In the distance, thunder rumbled, and the rain started to patter on the window. The weight of the journey ahead was felt by Keanu. The internal storm was mirrored by the external storm. A growth in tension as the puzzle pieces started to fit together. What is anticipated at the end station would put Keanu's fortitude and will to the test. However, he had no intention of going back at this time. The demand to find the truth. Moreover, Emily Carter's justice was long overdue. The final rays of the sun applied gold streaks to the sky prior to darkness encroaching on the horizon. Buddy and Keanu were ready for what they thought would be the last goal for them. Keys were in Keanu's backpack, exploring the map and a tiny camera to prove anything. They uncovered Buddy is donning a new and sporty collar go for a walk near Keanu. As though they could sense the gravity of their task, the map's path to the marked area was faster teaching than Keanu had thought. The trail was obscured by overgrown foliage, and above the dense canopy and the oppressive atmosphere of the forest, Buddy sniffed carefully. His eyes were sharp and pricked. After working through the thick for about an hour, they discovered a little, isolated wooden cabin beneath the brush. Inside, there were no lights. Keanu, however, sensed an unmistakable presence. Buddy remained sharp. The front door creaked slightly open as Keanu whispered. Keanu used his hand to nudge. The interior of the cabin was covered in shadows. Its air is heavy with dust and mildew. Despite what seems to be abandonment, there were obvious signs of recent activity. A coffee cup that was half empty was placed on the table, and faint warmth was emitted by a kerosene lamp. Keanu went farther inside. Suddenly, Buddy barked and charged toward the direction of the room's rear, a hood obscuring a man's face, pointing a gun at them. "Left up, you weren't supposed to be here." The man's voice was tinged with panic as he yelled. Keanu lowly raised his hand. "I'm not looking for trouble. Just the truth about Emily Carter, please." The man was stopped in his tracks by the name. "Emily Carter, she made a mistake by following us. She chose the wrong battle." According to Keanu's intuition, the man was concealing something. Quickly, but he lunged. The man's gun was knocked out of his hand. Keanu subdued him after kicking the weapon sideways. "Tell me the truth," by pinning him to the floor. The man merely smirked when Keanu demanded it. "The truth has been buried for years, and you can't stop us." Following the man's rescue with shift restraints, Keanu looked in the cabin under the table. In a hidden compartment, a folder with the name of Emily Carter was found by him. There were pictures of the family and the activity inside, notices about suspected transactions, and a list of people participating in a growthier network. A letter from Warren Graves was the most damning part, self-ordering the elimination of Emily for exposing their operation of human trafficking. A date was included in the letter. "In the last place, Emily was taken. We got it, Buddy." Keanu said that his voice was emotional and heavy. Buddy gave a quick wag of his tail. Keanu's loyal eyes meeting his far off while a police officer shattered the before leaving. Pause for a moment. A related federal contact had been called by Keanu, disclosing the evidence and the location of the cabin in minutes. Eventually, the cabin became the focus of a significant investigation. The man who had been restrained was brought into custody. Moreover, the folder was protected. To reopen Emily's case as essential evidence. The officers hailed Buddy as a hero. Get praise and pats. Everyone acknowledges his bravery as he scratched his ears. Ken knelt beside him. "I could not ask for a better partner than you, Buddy." After a few weeks, the real story of Warren Graves and his ring of trafficking, several arrests for unreported offenses were made in court, and dismantled was the long-hidden operation. Despite their grief, Emily's family is devastated. Finally got the whole story of how she disappeared trying to protect others had cost Emily her life. Her determination and courage cutting through Blackwater's years of silence. In Emily's honor, a little memorial was established, a memory of the lives saved and her bravery. Before it, Keanu and Buddy standed, their journey's weight letting go of a slow sense of completion. "Emily, we did it." His gaze was fixed on the plaque, as Keanu said. Buddy wagging gently beside his tail, talking of his pride in going home. The long-overdue piece is embraced by Keanu and Buddy. The Blackwater, its dark past no longer weighted down. However, Keanu was aware that their story was only one of many. Somewhere in the world, additional injustices awaited for exposure, and every time justice calls, Buddy and Keanu would be prepared. Consequently, conclusions: Keanu Reeves' emotional and gripping tale, and his devoted buddy companion in their unwavering quest for justice for the Emily Carter. This story is filled with heart and suspense. serving as a reminder of the power of courage moreover. The strength that comes from friendship. If this story had an impact on you, remember to leave a like. Post your ideas in the comments section. And disseminate this story to empower others. Click the notification bell and subscribe to the channel. Attend us for future stories that are more exciting and heartfelt. I appreciate you watching. And I hope to see you on another exciting adventure soon. Go have a great day.